The world you awaken to each morning seems solid, familiar, almost unquestionable. The walls around you, the routines you follow, the language you use to frame your thoughts, all of it carries the illusion of permanence and truth. Yet beneath this veneer lies a quieter, far more unsettling possibility that much of what you take as real is scaffolding erected by culture, habit, and unexamined assumptions. The phrase, "the world you live in is built on lies," is not simply a provocation, it is a key to opening the hidden architecture of existence, an architecture designed as much to conceal as to reveal. To explore this idea is to pull at threads woven into the very fabric of your reality until you discover that the tapestry itself may not be what it first appeared to be. Think of truth and untruth not as two static opposites, but as shifting landscapes, like twin rivers weaving together, sometimes inseparable in their confluence. We are taught to believe that truth is a shining jewel, self-evident and enduring, while lies are merely distortions waiting to be uncovered. But what if lies are not merely deviations from truth, but the very bricks and mortar upon which the edifice of human civilization has been built? From childhood myths that give meaning to our earliest days, to collective narratives about nation, economy, and progress, layers of untruth are stitched together so seamlessly that they begin to pass as reality itself. To question them is to risk unraveling not just illusions but the sense of self that rests upon them. Arthur Schopenhauer once suggested that much of human existence is shaped less by truth than by the comfort of appearances, that people will grasp at illusions if they make life more bearable. This insight does not merely echo across centuries of philosophy, it reverberates into the pulse of modern life. Advertising convinces us to purchase not products but identities. Political rhetoric offers security but trades in manipulation. Even in our personal relationships, we present masks polished by fear, pride, or longing, rarely daring to show the unvarnished face beneath. In this way, the world is less a mirror reflecting objective reality and more a hall of mirrors, each pane reflecting a distorted image of truth that bends according to context, perspective, and intention. When you begin to see the world through this lens, ordinary events take on a strange, almost surreal quality. A headline in the morning news is not simply a report of fact but an interpretation wrapped in agenda. A conversation with a friend is not just an exchange of words but a subtle dance of hidden motives, fears, and desires. Even the thoughts within your own mind can no longer be trusted as neutral observers, for they too are shaped by the lies you have inherited and internalized. The truth, if it exists in its purest form, is elusive, like the glimmer of a star glimpsed only out of the corner of your eye. And yet, paradoxically, this does not render existence meaningless. If anything, it invites a deeper kind of seeing. For if lies have indeed shaped the architecture of reality, then to glimpse them for what they are is to step into a higher vantage point, to see beyond the scaffolding and into the vast sky beyond. This is where the practical meets the cosmic. On the one hand, uncovering lies can free you from manipulation, from the invisible strings that tug at your choices. On the other hand, it awakens you to the strange, shimmering mystery of existence itself, where truth is less a fixed destination than a living current you learn to flow with. The metaphor of a stage is useful here. Life appears to us as a grand performance, complete with actors, scripts, costumes, and elaborate sets. The audience, society at large, claps when the roles are played convincingly, boos when they are not, and rarely ever questions who wrote the script in the first place. The world built on lies is the stage itself, constructed not of wood and paint but of ideas and assumptions. Most people live and die never suspecting that there is anything beyond the performance. But some, whether through suffering, curiosity, or sudden revelation, glimpse the stage lights, see the ropes and pulleys, and realize that what seemed like reality was always a production. In that instant, a doorway opens, and with it comes both the terror and the liberation of stepping off the stage and into the unknown. To acknowledge that the world is built on lies is not to descend into despair, but to recognize the paradoxical gift of human existence. Lies have the power to enslave, but they also carry within them the possibility of awakening. Every falsehood contains, hidden in its shadow, the seed of truth waiting to be discovered. Just as night makes the stars visible, deception can sharpen the yearning for what is real. In this way, the very lies that bind us also point the way to liberation, if only we have the courage to question them. The introduction to this journey, then, is not a condemnation of life as meaningless illusion, nor a cynical retreat into nihilism. Rather, it is an invitation to look more deeply, to peel back the layers of stories and see what lies beneath. Perhaps reality itself is not meant to be approached as a static, unchanging truth, but as a living mystery, one that demands both humility and daring. The world built on lies is not a prison from which you must escape, but a labyrinth in which you must learn to walk with eyes open, knowing that every corridor of deception might conceal a doorway to higher vision. As we step into this exploration, keep in mind that what lies ahead is not a simple uncovering of facts, nor a tidy replacement of falsehoods with certainties. It is instead a journey into the architecture of perception, into the symbolic and the unseen, into the very tension between illusion and awakening. For to truly grasp that the world you live in is built on lies is to set foot on a path that may transform not only how you see the world, but how you see yourself within it. To enter the heart of the claim that the world you live in is built on lies, one must begin to trace the threads of illusion that weave themselves into the fabric of daily existence. These threads are not isolated deceptions but systemic patterns, born of necessity, power, fear, and the strange creative tendency of the human mind to spin stories into structures. The lies we live within are not always malicious, often they are protective veils, shielding us from truths too stark, too vast, or too destabilizing to endure. Yet, even as they offer comfort, they confine us, creating a cage gilded with familiarity. In unraveling these themes, we begin to see how deeply illusion permeates not just society but the very experience of being alive. At the most immediate level, the lie of permanence is among the most pervasive. Human beings cling to the idea that things, relationships, and even their own identities are stable. We speak of nations as if they are eternal, of careers as if they define us permanently, of personal selfhood as if it were a fixed essence. Yet the truth whispered beneath this lie is flux. Everything flows, as Heraclitus long ago remarked, nothing remains. To accept this truth requires a radical surrender, and so the lie of permanence persists as a comfort, allowing us to live as if the ground beneath our feet were not shifting with every passing moment. Another theme is the lie of control. Society tells us that with sufficient effort, planning, and discipline, we can master our fate. This narrative fuels ambition, competition, and endless striving, yet it conceals a deeper truth: much of life unfolds beyond the reach of our will. Storms come, economies collapse, bodies fail, relationships falter. Control is a mirage, but its illusion keeps the machinery of civilization turning. Without the belief in control, perhaps the world's vast systems of labor and progress would collapse into stillness. Thus the lie is not only tolerated but encouraged, for it sustains the illusion of order. The lie of separateness is subtler, and yet more profound. From early childhood we are taught to see ourselves as distinct beings, isolated individuals moving through a world of others. This sense of separation creates the conditions for pride, fear, competition, and desire. Yet mystical traditions across cultures echo the same counterpoint, that all life is one, that consciousness is interwoven like threads in a single cosmic tapestry. The illusion of separateness may serve survival. It compels us to protect ourselves, to pursue resources, to distinguish between friend and foe. But it also blinds us to the deeper truth of unity, the underlying current that reveals the self in every other. Tied closely to these lies is the vast and intricate lie of language itself. Words shape thought, and thought shapes perception. We speak of time as though it were a line stretching forward and backward, measurable and divisible, and so we experience it that way. We speak of death as an end, a termination, and so we fear it as ultimate loss. But what if time is not linear, and what if death is but transformation? Language offers us maps, but often these maps are mistaken for the territory itself, obscuring more than they reveal. To live in a world of words is to dwell in a labyrinth of symbols, where meaning is mediated by constructs that conceal as much truth as they disclose. Beneath these lies runs perhaps the most universal one, the lie of certainty. Human beings crave closure, a sense of knowing, a foundation upon which to rest. Religion offers dogma, science offers models, culture offers traditions, all designed to give the impression that the ground of existence is solid, comprehensible, and final. Yet true inquiry reveals that certainty is always provisional. Scientific theories are overturned, theological certainties give way to reinterpretation, cultural traditions dissolve in the tide of time. The deeper truth is that reality is mystery, open-ended and unfathomable. The lie of certainty shelters us from this abyss, but it also robs us of the profound humility and wonder that come from dwelling within it. To see these themes not as isolated but as interwoven is to begin grasping the architecture of the world built on lies. Each deception supports the others, forming a structure so comprehensive that it feels indistinguishable from reality itself. The lie of permanence reassures us while the lie of control propels us forward. The lie of separateness makes us fearful and ambitious, while the lie of certainty keeps us complacent. Together, they form a lattice upon which civilization builds its myths, economies, laws, and identities. To question one is to shake the foundation of all, which is why so few dare to probe deeply. And yet, there is a paradox that runs through these lies. They are not only chains but also catalysts. The very deceptions that keep us bound to a narrow perception also compel us to seek more. The discomfort of impermanence drives the search for eternity. The failure of control pushes us toward surrender. The alienation of separateness stirs the longing for unity. Even the collapse of certainty opens the door to awe. In this way, the lies are not absolute prisons but thresholds, each concealing within itself the seed of transformation. The core themes, then, do not simply expose the falsehoods of life, they illuminate the dynamic tension between illusion and awakening. To see through lies is not merely to reject them but to recognize their role in shaping the human journey. For if the world were nothing but truth, perhaps there would be no need to seek, to question, to awaken. It is precisely because the world is built on lies that the yearning for what is real burns so fiercely in the human heart. This tension echoes in both philosophy and mysticism. Schopenhauer observed the human tendency to grasp illusions rather than face suffering, while Eastern traditions such as Buddhism describe samsara, the endless cycle of illusion and rebirth, as both a trap and a teacher. The lies of the world are not accidental, they are woven into the very structure of human experience. To awaken is not to destroy them but to see them clearly, to walk through them with awareness, and to use them as stepping stones toward the infinite. The world you live in is indeed built on lies, but not lies that render existence meaningless. They are lies that conceal and reveal, that bind and liberate, that lull you into sleep even as they offer the possibility of awakening. To grasp this paradox is to stand at the threshold of deeper vision, where every untruth becomes an invitation to step closer to the mystery of truth itself. To say the world is built on lies may sound like an accusation hurled against governments, religions, or powerful elites. Yet the truth of this statement penetrates far deeper, into the symbolic structures by which humanity has always made sense of existence. In order to truly grasp the subtlety of these lies, one must approach them not only with reason but with story, myth, and metaphor, for the architecture of illusion is often more easily unveiled through symbols than through arguments. Symbols act like keys that open hidden doors, bypassing the defenses of logic and slipping quietly into the inner sanctum of awareness. One of the oldest and most enduring symbolic narratives is that of Plato's cave. The prisoners chained in darkness, mistaking shadows on the wall for reality, are not distant characters in an ancient story but mirrors of our own condition. We live surrounded by flickering screens, advertisements, curated social media images, and political rhetoric, mistaking these shadows for truth. To step outside the cave is terrifying because it demands the death of what you thought was real. The light burns the eyes, the world feels alien. And yet, once you glimpse the sun, once you see that the world within the cave was constructed illusion, you can never again mistake shadows for the full breadth of truth. The lie, in this symbolic story, is not malicious, it is simply the limitation of perception, the veil that filters the vastness of reality into a manageable trickle. Another story that reverberates across cultures is the biblical tale of the Garden of Eden. Commonly framed as the story of humanity's fall, it can also be read as a profound meditation on the intertwining of truth and untruth. The serpent does not simply deceive Eve with a blatant lie, he offers a perspective wrapped in partial truth, suggesting that knowledge will make them like gods. Indeed, Their eyes are opened, but at the cost of innocence and harmony. Here we see that lies are rarely outright falsehoods, they are distortions of truth, fragments framed in a way that conceal as much as they reveal. The garden becomes the stage for humanity's perpetual struggle with illusion, to desire truth, to grasp at it, and yet to be entangled in the consequences of misperception. The motif of the veil appears again and again across mystical traditions. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of Maya describes the world as illusion, not non-existent, but not ultimate either. Maya is the veil that cloaks the eternal self, leading beings to mistake the play of appearances for absolute reality. Similarly, in Sufi mysticism, the world is seen as a veil that both conceals and reveals the divine. The veil does not simply hide the truth, it is also a necessary medium through which the truth can be approached. Just as the moon reflects the light of the sun, so illusions reflect fragments of the real, inviting us to look deeper, if only we have the eyes to see. Consider, too, the symbolic story of the mask. Every culture has used masks in ritual, drama, and celebration, and behind this practice lies a profound allegory. The mask conceals the face, presenting to the world an identity that is not the wearer's own. Yet in many traditions, the mask is not merely a disguise, it is a channel, allowing the wearer to embody gods, spirits, or archetypes. In our daily lives, the masks we wear, our roles, personas, social identities, are lies of a sort, concealing the raw self. But they are also instruments through which we participate in the larger drama of existence. The danger lies not in wearing masks, but in forgetting that they are masks, mistaking them for the face itself. The symbolic narrative of the mask thus reminds us that untruth becomes bondage only when it is mistaken for truth. There is also the recurring image of the dream, found in countless myths and philosophies. The Taoist sage Zhuangzi dreamt he was a butterfly, only to awaken and wonder whether he was Zhuangzi dreaming he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was Zhuangzi. Dreams blur the boundary between reality and illusion, showing us that our waking life, too, may be but a dream. Modern science, with its explorations of simulation theory and quantum uncertainty, only adds layers to this ancient symbolism. The dream suggests that what we call reality may be provisional, shifting, contingent, a narrative we inhabit rather than an ultimate truth. These symbolic narratives all point toward a central insight, that the world of appearances is a layered reality, where lies and truths interweave like threads in a single tapestry. The lie is not always the enemy of truth, but often its necessary counterpart, a shadow that gives form to light. To live within a world built on lies is to inhabit a cosmic drama where illusion is both obstacle and teacher. It is not a prison to be despised but a labyrinth to be navigated, where every twist and turn conceals deeper mysteries. One may even consider the great myth of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. Fire, here, is knowledge, illumination, the spark of truth. Yet it comes with suffering, for Prometheus is punished, and humanity, armed with knowledge, steps into a world of both progress and peril. The lesson here is that truth is never given whole, it is wrested from the fabric of existence, often at great cost, and always within the shadow of untruth. The lie of divine exclusivity, the belief that knowledge belonged only to the gods, is shattered, but at the price of both suffering and awakening. To reflect on these symbolic narratives is to realize that lies are woven not only into society but into the very structure of myth and story, the way humanity has always sought to understand itself. They are not random deceptions but archetypal patterns, recurring across time and culture, shaping the way we perceive reality. To awaken is not merely to reject these lies but to see through them, to grasp their symbolic truth, and to recognize the paradox that they conceal truth within their very fabric. The world you live in is built on lies, but these lies are not meaningless. They are masks that conceal the infinite, veils that protect us from the blinding brilliance of ultimate truth, shadows that give shape to the light. To see them as symbols rather than mere deceptions is to step into a deeper dimension of understanding, where every illusion becomes an invitation to transcend itself. It is one thing to reflect on the grand idea that the world is built on lies, and quite another to carry this insight into the texture of daily life. The challenge lies in bridging the mystical with the practical, the cosmic with the ordinary. To see illusions clearly is not meant to paralyze you or leave you floating in abstraction. Rather, it invites you to reorient how you live, how you think, how you act. The recognition of falsehood is not a call to despair but a call to transform your relationship with reality, to engage more consciously with the dance of truth and illusion. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding to look at the world with new eyes, suspecting that every surface conceals a depth and every claim hides a contradiction. You turn on the news and see not just events but narratives constructed to guide your perception. You scroll through social media and recognize not simply friends sharing moments, but personas carefully sculpted to project images, crafted masks of identity. You enter the marketplace and notice that products are sold not as objects but as promises. Buy this and you will be beautiful, loved, respected, fulfilled. By recognizing the lies, you are no longer ensnared by them. They lose their power to dictate your emotions, your choices, your sense of self. This does not mean withdrawing into cynicism or rejecting the world wholesale. On the contrary, it calls for a subtler kind of participation. You may still buy the product, watch the program, or share the post, but you do so with awareness. You know you are engaging with shadows on the cave wall, with masks on the stage, with dreams that have their own logic. The difference is that you are no longer fooled. You hold your actions lightly, refusing to anchor your identity to illusions that shift like sand. This awareness transforms even ordinary decisions into acts of liberation. In relationships, the recognition of lies can be both painful and freeing. We all wear masks, polite smiles, exaggerated confidence, curated vulnerability. To see through these masks is to risk disillusionment, to recognize that much of what people present is performance. Yet this vision also makes genuine connection possible. When you no longer expect others to be perfect reflections of truth, you can love them as they are, fragile beings navigating the labyrinth of illusion. You can also dare to remove your own masks, to risk honesty in a world that thrives on pretense. Such authenticity may unsettle others, but it also has the power to awaken them, to remind them that truth, though hidden, is not lost. On a broader scale, understanding the architecture of lies reshapes how you relate to institutions. Politics, religion, media, and education are built upon narratives, myths of progress, salvation, security, or success. By seeing these as stories rather than absolutes, you free yourself from blind allegiance. You may still participate, vote, pray, or study, but you do so without surrendering your critical gaze. You are no longer a prisoner to the scripts handed down. You can question, adapt, and choose consciously which stories to inhabit and which to abandon. This is not rebellion for its own sake, but the reclamation of your role as a co-creator of meaning rather than a passive consumer of illusion. The implications extend inward as well, into the way you relate to your own mind. Thoughts, after all, are the most intimate lies we live within. They arise unbidden, presenting themselves as truths, yet they are often distortions shaped by memory, desire, and fear. To see this is to begin disentangling your sense of self from the chatter of thought. Meditation, reflection, or simply pausing to observe your inner dialogue can reveal the extent of this inner deception. You might notice that much of what you believe about yourself, your limitations, your worth, your identity, is no more solid than a story you once accepted and repeated until it felt real. By questioning these inner lies, you open the possibility of discovering a deeper self, one not bound by the narratives of the mind. Practically, this shift manifests in small but profound ways. You stop over-identifying with the highs and lows of daily life, because you recognize them as part of a larger play. Success and failure lose their absolute grip, for you see them as roles within a drama rather than ultimate verdicts on your worth. You become less reactive to fear, manipulation, and external pressure, because you know these are tools wielded by illusions to keep you bound. Instead, you cultivate discernment, the ability to sense when you are being pulled by a false narrative, and the courage to step aside, to choose differently. In a world built on lies, the most radical act is not escape but presence. To be awake in the midst of illusion is to reclaim your freedom. It does not mean isolating yourself from the world, but moving through it with clarity, like a lucid dreamer who knows the dream is not reality yet still plays within it with purpose and creativity. When you understand the game, you are no longer merely a pawn. You can step into the role of conscious participant, perhaps even reshaping the rules for yourself and others. Ultimately, the integration of these insights leads to a kind of paradoxical wisdom. You live as if the world matters deeply, while knowing that its structures are fragile, its truths provisional, its lies ever-present. This does not diminish life, it deepens it. For when you cease clinging to illusions, you become open to the mystery that lies beyond them. You discover that the heart of truth is not a rigid certainty but a living presence, a silent awareness that shines through even the densest veils of deception. The journey through the recognition that the world is built on lies does not end in disillusionment, it opens into transformation. What began as a confrontation with deception evolves into a deeper appreciation of the mysterious interplay between appearance and reality, shadow and light, ignorance and awakening. If you have followed this thread through the veils of permanence, control, separateness, language, and certainty, through the allegories of caves and gardens, masks and dreams, you will see that lies are not simply obstacles but thresholds. They are thresholds that, once crossed, lead you into a different relationship with existence itself. The lies of the world have shaped you from birth. They have whispered to you about who you are, what is possible, and what is forbidden. They have convinced you to chase dreams that were never yours, to fear losses that never belonged to you, and to cling to identities that were never permanent. And yet, in recognizing them, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads back into forgetfulness, into the comfort of illusions, into the numbing security of unquestioned belief. The other path leads into the unknown, where truth is not given as a final answer but encountered as an ever-unfolding mystery. To walk the second path is not easy. It requires courage to face uncertainty, humility to admit how much you do not know, and patience to dwell within the tension of paradox. But it also brings a freedom unlike any other. When you are no longer bound by the need for certainty, you are free to explore. When you are no longer enslaved by illusions of control, you are free to surrender to the flow of life. When you no longer cling to the lie of separateness, you begin to feel the vast interconnectedness of all things, the pulse of a deeper unity that underlies every fragment of existence. This transformation is not abstract, it reshapes the texture of your daily life. You begin to notice beauty in places where before you saw only routine. You listen more deeply, for you no longer assume you already know what others mean. You approach difficulties not as failures of control but as invitations to surrender and learn. Even death itself, once feared as the ultimate loss, becomes less terrifying, for you see that the lie of finality hides the truth of transformation. The world built on lies has not been destroyed, it has been transfigured, seen through, rendered transparent to the light that shines beyond it. And so the call is not to reject the world but to awaken within it. You are invited to live as one who knows the stage is a stage but still acts with sincerity, as one who knows the dream is a dream but still participates with heart. To awaken is not to escape illusion, but to recognize it, to play within it with clarity, and to allow it to point you toward the greater reality it conceals. The transformational call is simple yet profound. Begin to question. Question the stories you have inherited, the identities you have worn, the fears you have carried. Question the promises of institutions, the narratives of media, the whispers of your own mind. Not to discard everything in a fit of skepticism, but to discern, to see through, to recognize where illusion binds you and where truth calls you. This practice is not an event but a way of life, a continual peeling back of veils, a constant returning to the mystery that lies beneath appearances. If the world you live in is built on lies, then your awakening begins not by tearing it down but by stepping into it with new eyes. The lies will remain, they are part of the structure of human existence, but they will no longer bind you. Instead, they will become signposts, reminding you that truth is not found in appearances but in the silent awareness that perceives them. You will find that every lie, once seen clearly, becomes a teacher, pointing you beyond itself. And here is the final paradox: the deeper you awaken, the more compassion you feel for those still caught in illusion. For you realize that you, too, once mistook shadows for reality, once clung desperately to masks, once feared the loss of certainties. To awaken is not to separate yourself from others but to walk among them with gentleness, offering light without force, presence without judgment. In this way, your transformation becomes not only personal but collective, a ripple that moves outward, softening the lies of the world with the subtle power of truth. The world you live in is built on lies. Yet beyond the lies is a reality that cannot be spoken, only lived. The invitation before you is to step into this reality, not by fleeing the world but by seeing through it, not by destroying illusion but by awakening within it. If you accept this invitation, you may find that the lies were never enemies at all, but teachers in disguise, guiding you to the threshold of your own awakening. And so the call remains, awaken. Look beneath the surface. Step beyond the shadows. Live not in denial of the world's illusions, but in the freedom of one who sees through them. For once you recognize that the world is built on lies, you are no longer its prisoner, you are its lucid dreamer, its conscious participant, its awakened witness. And in that recognition lies the beginning of transformation.